The Via Stoica podcast with Brendan and Benny. Powered by viastoica.com, your home for coaching, workshops, quotes, and Stoic content that inspires. Welcome to the Via Stoica podcast. My name is Benny. I'm your host for today. And today we're going to look at the topic that I've been asked about for many times, and I see a lot of questions about how to build a strong relationship. We're going to do this from obviously a Stoic point of view, and we're going to see if we can help you build a stronger relationship, find a relationship, or maybe not be in a relationship that you might be in. So we're going to look at it from all different angles. And we just really want to help you here with yourself and how to look at what relationships mean to you in life and where you want to take it and why it might be important or not, or the pressures that we have put on ourselves to be in a relationship at all time, right? Whether that is a necessary thing for us to be happy. We're going to look into all of that. But before, make sure you like and subscribe to the podcast, whether you're watching us on YouTube or on Spotify, or wherever you're listening or watching to the podcast, and leave a comment, right? Tell us how you feel about relationships and what makes them important to you. And let us know if you have some specific topics or questions that you would like us to address. Also, please let us know in the comments. We'd be more than happy to look into it and maybe even base a complete episode on it. And if you're struggling with any of this, you can always schedule a free consultation on viastoica.com. You can talk to one of our coaches and sign up for our newsletter at the pause. So let's go right into the relationships and see why this is such a big topic. Right. So what I see out there is many people, and especially the connecting it to age. I'm this old, I'm not in a relationship. I'm this old, I'm not in a relationship. How do I find one? I'm always alone. Or how do I fix the one that I'm in? Or am I in the right relationship? A lot of questions are based on this topic, right? Because it is such an important one. Because as a human species, especially in society that we are not supposed to be alone, right? This is the idea that we've been given. We are raised in a sequence of events where we grow up, we go to school, we meet other people, we are in romantic relationships, we get a house, we get children, we get a job, we get a car, we get all of these things, right? That sequence of events that happens. And I know from experience that even though while you're living that life, walking those steps, they can break down, right? For example, in divorce, as happened to me, and then suddenly that trajectory is broken and you don't know what to do with yourself anymore. But yet there is so much more out there, and it's actually kind of freeing because you are no longer in that treadmill. You can determine your own future, your own goals, your own pathway to life. So the relationship from the beginning isn't the end all, right? Isn't the one thing that will make you happy. And that's something that we've got to remember. And we're going to look into that as we progress through this episode. So we're going to first start with before being in a relationship, right? When we are by ourselves. Why is this important? And interestingly enough, we can find a paradox here. We talked about it in a few episodes ago about how to get through the holiday season. But if we are able to connect better with ourselves, right, to make sure that the relationship with ourselves is solid, is strong, is balanced, we know who we are, we know our flaws, we know our weaknesses. If we build out that strong foundation and we can connect truly with who we are, and that this is what the Stoics viewed, and we immediately connect with the world around us. Why? Because we are part of the world, right? We are part of that bigger picture, and we have been given this spark of the divine, of nature, which is reason and logic, right? A rational mind. And if we can truly connect with it, then instantly we can connect with the world around us as well. You can read this in Beyond the Individual by Will Johncock. We have a book review on our website. We have an interview on the website, on the podcast as well. You can check that out. But it's very interesting to see that the more we connect with ourselves, the more we connect with the world around us. And we do that in a better way. We do that in a more sustainable and balanced way because we get to look at the world objectively for what it is without projecting our needs, desires, our fears, all of these things on it. And we can then, where we can make our image distorted because of what we believe in our minds, but then we can look at it for what it really is because we can see us better for who we really are. So before we start to jump into a relationship, find that significant other, find that soul that completes us, we need to tell ourselves, I should complete myself first. I don't need anyone else to complete me, right? My happiness, my good life shouldn't depend on whether I have a partner, whether I have someone next to me, whether I'm fulfilling that societal path of what a good life should look like. We should be able to be happy with ourselves, content, right? As Seneca says, the wise person is content by themselves. Doesn't mean that they're not looking for social connections or anything, but they know that what they have, and from there they can find everything they need. So that's the first step that we've got to go. Stop going frantically looking for someone else. Keep, those dating apps, keep all the other stuff, keep the anxiety from not being with someone away, but first focus on yourself. Build out that relationship. Make yourself strong and balanced before you start looking for someone else. But we also have to understand, and the Stoics knew this very well, that we are human beings and human beings are social beings. We need relationships, we need connection with other people. Why? Because first of all, relationships, they can reveal to us who we really are. When we are acting in amongst ourselves, we are acting in a void and we have no reference points. We have no ways of interacting and seeing what we're doing is good or bad. But we need those interactions. But again, first we need to make sure that we can see them clearly without any colored glasses, the pink glasses, the blue glasses, how we look at the world. We need to make sure that we look at it for what it really is without adding any value judgments of this is good or this is bad. But our relationships, how we interact, will show us who we are. They show us our intentions, but they also show us our flaws, right? If we look at someone else and we say, oh, they're doing this and this bad, maybe that's something because we're looking at that because it's something that is important to us. So it can tell us a lot more about ourselves, give us all that information that we need. And they also expose our character, right? Our fears, our sense of loss, our desires of what we need or what we cling on to, our attachments. They really show us everything that we need to work on. So they are something that we do need in life, but it's based on the level of how we need them in life and on what grounds, right? And when we think about relationships, it's not necessarily romantic relationships. We're thinking about friendships as well. We're thinking about all kind of relationships that we have. Think about the three different types of friendships that Aristotle made, right? The friendship of utility, where we have people that are useful to us and we to them. But once that use is gone, the friendship is gone. The friendship of pleasure, where we enjoy the company, right? But that's it. Once that enjoyment is gone, the pleasure is gone, the friendship is gone. And then the most stable one is the friendship of virtue, right? Where we are just doing something good for people, for our friends, for those that we have relationships with because we want to do good for them. That friendship will always stay there. Those are the friends that if you don't see them for years, you go back and nothing has changed because you know that you are supposed to be together and that you can also be apart, right? Where everybody can be themselves, where they can be safe and comfortable, and they know that they know what they have, what they value of each other, but they can also be apart. So it's good to kind of have those friendships in mind, those relationships. But it's important to have relationships, right? We see so many people isolating themselves because they feel like they need to be a lone wolf. They feel like they need to do everything by themselves, but that's not who we are. We need to act for people around us and they will act for us. And that's how we build each other up. And we can see that in Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, book 8.59, where he says, people exist for one another. You can either instruct them or endure them, right? This is the emperor of the Roman Empire. He says we live for each other. Some other empires, they thought that you live for me. I'm the god, right? I'm the demigod or the god, or, that's how they saw themselves. But he sees like, no, I'm just the same as everybody else. I'm just in a different role. I just have different responsibilities. But I exist for each other. I exist for you. You exist for me, and we can instruct them where we go wrong. And we can, if they don't if they don't listen, or if they're impossible to instruct, we should be able to endure them, right? So he understood that relationships on so many different levels are important. That's who we are as human beings, and we've got to work from that. No, don't look at the lone wolf aspect. Go find those people, but again, we need to work out from the basis of knowing who we are, because the best relationships that we can find is if we do the things that we should be doing. If we pursue our interests, our hobbies, then we will find like-minded people who are on the same path, who are working towards the same thing. And that's what we've really got to focus on. Now, one interesting Stoic, Hierocles, I think he's from the 2nd century AD, he talked about concentric circles, and that's how he pictured the world, right? And he wrote about that in his fragments. And I think it's especially fragment 6, where he talks about the circles, and we have these inner circles, and it says like each of us, as it were, are circumscribed by many circles, and we build out, right? That's how we can see our relationships. The first, as he mentioned, is a relationship with our mind, right? And then it's with our body, with our closest externals, and then we go towards our friends, our families, right? Those really core people, our parents, our siblings, our very close friends. Then we move beyond that, right? And we look at our aunts, our uncles, the people beyond that, and we can go to our city, to our society, to the country that we live in. And at the end, the biggest one, and they all comprehend each other, is the logos, right? Nature. That's what he says. That's what we're all part of. So when we are looking at relationships and we're looking at the people around us, we are all connected to one another. It doesn't mean that if I'm coming from this country, that doesn't mean that I'm the same, different from someone else. Maybe in cultural ways I am, but as a human being, I am not. As a rational, reasonable thinking person, I am the same. That's why the Stoics look at the world as cosmopolitanism, right? They say, like, I'm not from one place of the world, I'm from the entire world, from nature. And that's what we've got to keep in mind when we are interacting with people. But when we have those close relationships, we also keep in mind that where they are in the circles and how close they are to us and what our responsibilities and our duties are to those people. But at the end of the day, it shouldn't matter to whom with whom you are facing. You should be able to interact and respect everybody in the same way. And now here we come to more of the getting into the relationship. Let's say you found this partner, you might be in a relationship with them, or you might even get married. And the Stoics were very pro-marriage, right? If you look at Musonius Rufus's lecture, Epictetus, the Stoics, they really felt like this was something that a person had to do, right? To get married. But why? It's not from the romantic stand of view. It's more from the unity um, as a society, as a building blocks, right? Where you are together, where you raise children, where you create that family nucleus, and that's where marriage really comes into play. And it's not necessarily about this romance that we have now been instilled of like what it is about. It's more about living well together. That's really, again, we talk about this friendship of virtue. Same goes with the marriage. It should be a marriage of virtue, right? And he says in his fragments in lectures 13a, he says, in marriage there must be, above all, companionship and care of husband and wife for each other, both in sickness and health and on every occasion. Right? It's about taking care of each other, supporting each other, being there for each other. When it's difficult, when it's easy, when it's good in every way. That's really what marriage is about. And it's about mutual respect, mutual care, cooperation, all of these great things that make a marriage really great together. And he says that it shouldn't depend on wealth, on beauty, right? Because those things don't last, right? Neither wealth, nor beauty, nor noble birth have been able to increase a sense of partnership. If it's based on any of those things, then it's not a solid partnership, and it's not a solid relationship. It should be based on who someone is as a person. Beauty withers away, wealth can disappear, or someone can be wealthier than you, and then they might go away. So if it's based on who we are as a person, based on our character and our soul, that's what would make a relationship long lasting. So what matters is character, that he says, right? He says souls disposed towards self-control and justice are more suitable for marriage. Self-control in our actions and justice in the way we treat each other, being fair. And one interesting that he says here at the end of this part A of the lecture 13, he says, in cases like this, even though the couple lives together, their union is bound to be destroyed and their affairs cannot be helped but go poorly. They either break apart completely from each other, or they have a relationship that is worse than solitude. And especially the last part, right? If we have a relationship that is, bad, where one spouse or partner considers their own interests more important, where they're not really paying full attention to what the partner needs and they're just living beside each other, you could be in a relationship, right? But you can feel utterly alone. You can experience the deepest sense of loneliness because you're expecting this return of affection, of attention, and yet you're not receiving it. You can't really go forward elsewhere because you are stuck here, right? So that's why it is so important to work from your own values, your own priorities, to incorporate that together and to really care for each other, to build that solid relationship on mutual respect. And this is what makes a relationship strong, right? When we are building a strong relationship, it shouldn't be based on, always being happy together, this constant harmony, this emotional intensity, all of these things, the absence of conflict, always romance, and all of these great things. That's not necessarily what makes a relationship, a romantic relationship, strong, right? Or even a non-romantic relationship. What does make it strong is what we talked about: the mutual care, right? Not possession, honesty without humiliation, gentleness, but being gentle, but being firm, right? Setting your boundaries, being clear, being honest, making sure that you communicate well, and cooperation instead of winning. Because if we start to make it into a competition, then we're not living with each other, we're living against each other. And that's really important. That's how we can build these strong relationships that last. We can forge them into something more better than just based on pure romance or love. We can make them into a friendship, this relationship of virtue. And now comes one part in the relationship which also is important, right? We know that when we are in a relationship with someone else, that this is a mortal being, right? Anything can happen for them to leave, to separate from us. We can feel misaligned, they can just have different desires, they can pass away, all these things can happen. And that's where Epictetus tells us something very important, and it might sound a little bit morbid, it might sound a little bit dark. He says, if you kiss your child or your wife, say to yourself, this is a human being that you're kissing. He says that is in handbook number 3, right? Why does he say that? And another one, he says, when you kiss your child goodnight, softly whisper, tomorrow you will die. These things sound very morbid, but they are a lesson in gratitude. They are a lesson in understanding what the true nature of a relationship of these other people is. They're mortal beings. They're also affected by the constant change of life. They can be here one moment and can be gone the next. And that's something that we've got to keep in mind. That also is what keeps the relationship healthy, because if one of the partners is afraid of losing what they have, they might sacrifice who they are to just stay in the relationship to make sure that the other person won't go away. This is often a self-fulfilling prophecy, where you do things, where you start to change yourself in such a way that at one point you can't even live with yourself anymore. And they are no longer with the person that they chose to be with from the beginning. So that's something to keep in mind. But if we know that who they are, and if we can really appreciate them for being there in that moment, giving them our full attention and our gratitude, then if they were to leave or if the relationship were to end, we can still say, but we've had a great time together. I know that things might change. I know that it might go a different way, but we can still focus on that and say, wow, that was good. And it ended. And that's how it works. That's how life works. Things change, right? So that's what we've got to keep in mind. If we want to build a strong relationship, we also have to make sure that we are detached from the relationship itself, that we are able to let it go if fate asks us to do so. Because again, the partners, the people in our lives are externals. We need to make sure that we have our mindset in a proper way, that we can deal with it in the best way possible, that we can keep our character and our rational minds there where it needs to be and do what we're supposed to be doing. And then obviously we have difficulties in relationship, right? Conflicts, arguments, fights, all of these things. Even in those things, we can still remain in good character. We can deal with them in the best way possible. And first, we have to make sure that we are looking at things the right way, right? Epictetus says that it's not the things themselves that disturb us, but our judgment on them. So if we, um, as, if we attribute bad behavior to our partners, if we attribute all these things, then we're doing that from a sense of self, that we are judging them in a certain way. But if we're not sure what's happening, then our judgment might not be right. So we need to ask, we need to make sure that we are working with the right information, that we are basing our judgments on the truth. A lot of the times we should just withhold our judgment and ask our spouse, our partner, what's really going on, and face it with a good, clear communication, respect, and honesty. And then we can have our disagreements, right? And if we have our disagreements, we can work with them. We can um, overcome them, or maybe not. But we can then not overcome them in a respectful way. we can separate in a good way because we know that we've worked from our own point of views. We tried our best, but it didn't work. And that's also fine. And if it does, great. But not if we just keep on having a conflict, if we don't listen to each other, if we don't respect each other, if we don't see what is really happening and base our judgment on that. That's what's key in conflict resolution. We've got to listen to each other. We got to try to see the other point of view. Marcus Aurelius says, try to get in the other person's mind. That's what we've got to try to do. Where are they coming from? And ask, communicate. That's really important to do as well. And be honest and clear about your intentions and your boundaries as well. So again, as we start to wrap this episode up, first we've got to work from our foundation. That's what we got to keep saying here. Work on yourself first. Make sure that you're balanced, know who you are. Make sure that all your actions are based on your nature and on virtue. And from then you can open yourself up to a relationship. Almost wanted to say look for one, but that's not necessary, because if you do what you're supposed to be doing, then you will find them and you will encounter the people around you that are there for you and that you should be in a relationship with. And then give it your all, right? Care for this person, love them with your deepest and genuine feelings. Make sure that you are cooperating, make sure that you are a team. Then if you have conflicts and if you see that things are changing, then also be brave enough to take the step to maybe move on and end it. But at the end of the day, always be grateful for those that you have around in the moment, because you never know how long they're going to be there. Make sure that you give them your full attention, because as Simone Weil said, attention is love. And that's what we can give, and that's what we should be doing to everybody around us. So again, thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for being here. If you enjoy these episodes, like and subscribe. Leave a comment here about how you view relationships, where you might be struggling. And if you need help, reach out and book a free consultation on viastoica.com, where you can talk to us about this and we can see maybe there's some coaching or there's other ways that we can help you. We hope you have a great rest of the day wherever you are, and hope to see you in the next one.
Thank you for listening to the Via Stoica podcast. If you have enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, rating, and leaving a review. Your feedback will help us reach more like-minded people on the journey to self-improvement. If you want to get in touch with us or find more information, you can go to viastoica.com, your one-stop platform for all things Stoicism and living better. And remember, virtue is the only good.